In the dimly lit war room of the United Earth Federation, Commander Jackson Veris stood at the head of a large table, surrounded by advisors and representatives from various alien civilizations. The holographic display in the center flickered to life, projecting a galaxy map filled with blinking red dots, threat indicators of ships that were part of the Dracon Alliance. Jackson rubbed his chin thoughtfully, his blue eyes scanning the map with a mix of determination and concern. "Ladies and gentlemen, we're at a critical juncture," Jackson began, his voice steady. "The Dracon Alliance has been growing bolder in their territorial expansions, and their recent incursions into our outer colonies cannot go unchallenged. We cannot afford to underestimate them." The room was filled with murmurs of agreement, yet there was a palpable tension in the air. Captain Mira, a sharp-minded strategist from the Zenta Empire, spoke up, her voice cutting through the chatter. "We've had previous encounters with the Dracons. They thrive on intimidation. We should focus on forging alliances rather than direct confrontation." Jackson nodded, appreciating Mira's insight. "You're right, but we also need to be prepared for the worst. The Dracons respect strength. If we show weakness, they will exploit it." As the discussion continued, a flickering light caught Jackson's attention. He glanced over at the display, where one of the red dots was pulsating. It was a distress signal from the colony of Veridan. "We have to respond to this. It might be a trap, but we can't leave our people stranded." With a decisive motion, Jackson activated the communication array. "This is Commander Jackson Veris of the United Earth Federation. We are responding to your distress signal. What is your status?" The screen crackled to life, revealing a worried face. A young scientist named Leora, her hair wild and eyes filled with urgency. "Commander, we're under attack. The Dracons have landed on Veridan. We need immediate assistance." Jackson felt a surge of determination. "We're sending a fleet immediately. Hold your position and fortify your defenses. Help is on the way." Turning back to the table, he commanded, "We must mobilize the fleet and prepare for potential conflict. Captain Mira, coordinate with our allies. We need every available ship." As the team scrambled into action, Jackson couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. The Dracon Alliance had been a constant thorn in their side, but now it seemed they were ready to make a more aggressive move. He remembered tales of past conflicts, stories of bravery and sacrifice. Humanity had always found a way to persevere against overwhelming odds, and he intended to harness that spirit. Hours later, the fleet was ready. Jackson stood on the bridge of the flagship, the Elysium, watching as the stars streaked by. His crew moved with precision, each member understanding the gravity of the situation. As they approached Veridan, the tension was palpable. Suddenly, the ship's sensors blared an alarm. "Incoming ships," shouted Lieutenant Kira, her fingers flying over the controls. "Dracon vessels on an intercept course." "Battle stations," Jackson commanded, adrenaline coursing through him. "Prepare to engage. We cannot let them reach Veridan." As the crew sprang into action, Jackson felt a surge of hope mixed with fear. This was it, the moment where human ingenuity and resolve would be put to the test. He turned to his crew, determination written on his face. "We fight not just for Veridan, but for the future of all humanity. We will show the Dracons that they cannot take what is ours." The ships drew closer, their dark silhouettes ominous against the backdrop of stars. Jackson could see the glint of weapons powering up. This was not just a battle. It was a declaration. Humanity would not back down. As the first shots were fired, Jackson felt a rush of determination. This was the moment they had trained for. This was where legends were born. The roar of battle echoed through the vastness of space as the Elysium engaged the Dracon fleet. Commander Jackson Veris stood resolute at the helm, his heart racing in sync with the thundering blasts of energy weapons colliding with enemy shields. The view from the bridge was both terrifying and exhilarating. The void of space lit up with explosions, illuminating the faces of the crew who shared his unwavering resolve. Status report, Jackson barked, his voice firm despite the chaos surrounding them. Shields holding at 80%, but they're losing power rapidly, Lieutenant Kira replied, her eyes focused on the console. Drakon ships are outnumbering us. We need to call for reinforcements. Jackson knew they were at a disadvantage, but he also understood that this battle was more than a tactical engagement. It was a statement. Humanity had faced overwhelming odds before, and each time they had emerged stronger. He recalled the histories of the many conflicts that had shaped their species, each war echoing tales of resilience and innovation. Keep our position, Jackson commanded. We'll draw them in and use our maneuverability to our advantage. Initiate evasive maneuvers and prepare to counter-strike. As the Elysium danced among the fireballs of exploding ships, Jackson's mind wandered to a time before the war. He remembered the peaceful days spent on Earth, the laughter of children playing in the parks, and the camaraderie forged in the fires of shared dreams. Those moments felt like a distant memory now, overshadowed by the grim reality of conflict. Suddenly, the comms crackled to life. Commander, this is Captain Mira on the Starfire. We're en route to your location, but we're encountering heavy resistance. Requesting backup. Understood, Captain, Jackson replied, fighting against the gnawing worry for his ally. We'll hold the line as long as we can. You'll have our support soon. Mira's voice was filled with determination. We'll push through, for humanity. Just then, a violent tremor shook the Elysium. Alarms blared, and the ship's systems flickered momentarily. Hull breach on Deck 5. We're losing atmosphere. Kira shouted, urgency in her tone. Seal the affected areas and divert all power to the forward shields, Jackson commanded. We cannot falter now. As the crew rushed to their stations, Jackson's thoughts turned to the Drakons. They were a formidable adversary, known for their ruthlessness and ferocity in battle. Stories of their conquests haunted him. He had studied their tactics extensively, and he knew that underestimating them would be a grave mistake. They're pushing forward, shouted Lieutenant Jace, his fingers flying over the controls. We need to take out their flagship, or we won't survive this. Jackson clenched his fists, determination burning in his chest. All right, let's target their command ship. All batteries on my mark. 3, 2, 1. Fire. The Elysium unleashed a torrent of energy beams, striking the Drakon flagship with precision. The enemy vessel staggered, returning fire with furious intensity. Jackson felt the ship shudder as a blast impacted their shields, sending shockwaves through the bridge. Damage report, he shouted, his heart pounding. Shields down to 30%. Kira replied, panic flickering in her eyes. We need to fall back or we'll be overwhelmed. No, Jackson declared, his voice steady despite the chaos. We stand our ground. We're not just fighting for ourselves. We're fighting for every colony, every innocent life on Veridan. If we back down now, we send a message that humanity can be pushed around. Just then, the view screen showed a stunning sight. The Starfire, flanked by a group of allied ships from the Zenta Empire, surged into the fray. The vibrant energy shields flickered as they joined the battle, raining fire down upon the Drakons. Captain Mira, you made it, Jackson exclaimed, relief flooding his senses. Let's turn the tide together. Following your lead, Commander. Mira's voice rang out, confident and unwavering. With renewed vigor, Jackson coordinated their forces, launching a counter-offensive that pushed back the Drakon lines. The tide of battle shifted. The Drakons, caught off guard by the united front, began to falter. However, in the heat of battle, a familiar dread crept back into Jackson's mind. The Drakons had a history of counterattacks that often turned the tide against their enemies. He remembered the warnings he had heard from historians about how the Drakons thrived in chaos, using it to their advantage. They had faced similar challenges before, and it had cost them dearly. Keep your eyes open, Jackson warned his crew. Expect the unexpected. As the battle raged on, Jackson felt the weight of every decision he made pressing down on him. Each command could mean life or death for his crew, for the colonists on Veridan, and for the future of humanity. Then, amidst the chaos, a chilling realization struck him. The Dracons were adapting their strategy, pulling back to regroup for a counterattack. Jackson's heart raced as he recalled his studies of Dracon tactics. They would always exploit weaknesses, using deception to draw their enemies into traps. "Prepare for a possible retreat," Jackson said, steeling his resolve. "We need to regroup and reassess our strategy." Just as he finished speaking, an alarm blared throughout the ship. "Incoming missiles," Kira shouted. "They're targeting our engines." Jackson's pulse quickened as he barked orders. "All hands, brace for impact. Prepare to engage emergency shields." The impact rocked the ship, and Jackson felt the world around him blur for a moment. As the crew regained their footing, he glanced at the view screen, where the Dracon ships were closing in for a decisive blow. This was not the end. This was merely a chapter in their story. The resolve of humanity would shine through, he vowed, no matter the cost. "Fight for humanity," Jackson shouted, rallying his crew. "We'll show them the strength of our spirit." With a roar, the crew responded, their voices rising in unity. They were ready to face whatever came next, armed with the knowledge that their ingenuity and resilience would guide them through the darkest of times. The aftermath of the brutal engagement with the Dracon fleet left the Elysium battered but not broken. Commander Jackson Veris stood on the bridge, surveying the damage reports as the crew worked tirelessly to stabilize the ship. The atmosphere was tense, yet there was an underlying current of determination that coursed through the vessel. They had weathered the storm, but the fight was far from over. "Casualty reports are coming in," Lieutenant Kira announced, her voice steady despite the grimness of the data scrolling across her screen. "We lost 5 crew members, and many more are injured. The Starfire took significant damage, but is still operational." Jackson's heart sank at the news of their losses. He knew every life aboard the Elysium mattered. They were not just soldiers, they were families, friends, and dreamers. "We honor their sacrifice by ensuring we don't lose anyone else. We need to regroup and prepare for the next phase of our mission." As the crew worked to repair systems, Jackson received an urgent transmission from Captain Mira. "Commander Veris, we've picked up a distress signal from a nearby Dracon ship. It seems they're experiencing a malfunction. They're requesting assistance." Jackson paused, his brow furrowing in thought. "A Dracon ship. Are you certain?" "Positive," Mira confirmed. "They're claiming to be stranded and in need of help. It could be a trap, but it could also be an opportunity. If we save them, we might turn the tide of this war and gain valuable intel." Jackson weighed the options. Trusting a Dracon was risky, but he also understood that their history was filled with examples of turning enemies into allies. He recalled tales of unexpected friendships forged in the heat of battle, alliances that had changed the course of history. If they could pull this off, it might be the key to ensuring peace. "All right, let's investigate," Jackson decided. "But we approach with caution. Prepare a boarding party and keep weapons at the ready." The crew moved quickly, and soon the Elysium altered its course to intercept the drifting Dracon ship. As they drew closer, the sleek, dark vessel came into view, its hull scorched and battered. It was a striking contrast to the ferocity that the Dracons had displayed in battle. "Prepare for docking," Jackson commanded, "and keep the energy shields up until we know what we're dealing with." The docking sequence initiated, and a tense silence fell over the bridge. Jackson felt a mixture of excitement and trepidation. If this Dracon crew was genuine, they might provide crucial insights into their strategies. If it was a trap, they had to be ready for anything. "Docking completed," Kira reported. "I'll open the airlock." The airlock hissed as it opened, revealing the dimly lit interior of the Dracon ship. Jackson led the boarding party into the alien vessel, his heart pounding in his chest. The atmosphere was thick with tension, and he couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking into the unknown. As they moved deeper into the ship, they encountered a group of Drakon soldiers. To Jackson's surprise, they were not aggressive. Instead, they looked exhausted and desperate. The leader, a tall Drakon with silver scales and piercing eyes, stepped forward, hands raised in a gesture of peace. "I am Commander Zorak," he introduced, his voice deep and resonant. "We are grateful for your assistance. Our ship was hit during the battle, and we have lost our way. We mean no harm." Jackson hesitated, aware of the many betrayals that could come from trusting an enemy. Yet there was an earnestness in Zorak's eyes that compelled him to listen. "Why should we trust you, Commander? Your kind has brought nothing but conflict to our doorstep." Zorak nodded sullenly. "I understand your hesitation, but our leaders have grown reckless, and not all of us support this war. Many of my crew wish to find peace. If you help us repair our ship, I promise to share vital information that could change the course of this conflict." The sincerity in Zorak's voice resonated with Jackson. He could sense the desperation in the Drakon's plea, a yearning for something beyond warfare. "What kind of information?" Jackson inquired, crossing his arms. Zorak took a deep breath. "The Drakon Alliance is planning a massive offensive against your colonies. We have insider knowledge of their strategies and weaknesses. With your help, we could halt their advance and perhaps even find a way to broker a truce." Jackson exchanged glances with Mira and Kira. The risks were immense, but the potential reward could save countless lives. "All right, Commander Zorak," Jackson finally said. "We'll assist you, but we will not lower our guard. Any sign of treachery, and we will retaliate." Zorak bowed his head, a look of relief washing over his features. "Understood. I will not betray your trust." The boarding party got to work, combining their resources to repair the Drakon vessel. As they worked side by side, Jackson observed the growing camaraderie between his crew and the Drakon soldiers. Despite their differences, they shared a common goal: survival. Over the next few hours, Jackson and Zorak exchanged stories about their respective worlds. Zorak spoke of the harsh and unforgiving nature of Drakon culture, where strength and dominance were revered. Jackson shared tales of humanity's struggles and triumphs, the lessons learned through the crucible of war. "Your people have a fascinating history," Zorak said as they paused for a moment to catch their breath. "I can see how you've grown strong despite your many conflicts." Jackson nodded, a smile breaking through his serious demeanor. "And your people have a strength born from survival. Perhaps we can learn from each other." As they continued to work, Jackson felt a shift within himself. He had always viewed the Drakons as enemies, but now he began to see them as potential allies. They were not so different after all. Both species had faced struggles and had the capacity for compassion, even in the darkest of times. Finally, the repairs were complete, and Zorak's ship was ready to fly again. "Thank you for your assistance, Commander Veris," Zorak said, gratitude evident in his tone. "With your help, we stand a chance against the madness of war." Jackson clasped Zorak's forearm, a gesture of solidarity. "We forged an unlikely alliance today. Let's use this opportunity to change the narrative of our people. Together, we can build a future where conflict doesn't reign supreme." As Zorak's ship powered up, Jackson felt a sense of hope swell within him. They were not just soldiers, they were agents of change, bound by the desire to create a better future. As the ships prepared to depart, he understood that this was only the beginning of a new chapter in their story. The combined fleet of the Elysium and Zorak's Drakon ship, now dubbed the Resolute, soared through the stars, forging a path towards the Drakon Alliance's stronghold. Commander Jackson Veris stood on the bridge, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. The tension from the earlier battle had transformed into a fierce determination. They were no longer just a federation of humans. They were allies, united by a common goal. "Commando, we've received intel from Zorak," Lieutenant Kira announced, her fingers dancing across the console. "He's identified the location of the Drakon command ship, Dreadfire. It's heavily fortified but vulnerable to a coordinated assault." Jackson turned to Zorak, who stood beside him, his silver scales glimmering under the bridge lights. Can you provide us with details on their defenses? Zorak nodded, projecting a holographic map of the Drecon command ship. They rely on a dual-layered shield system. We'll need to exploit their blind spots and deploy our weapons with precision. If we can disable their shields, we stand a chance of breaching their hull. Captain Mira chimed in, her eyes scanning the tactical display. If we use the Elysium and the Resolute as distraction vessels, we can split their forces. The remaining ships can focus on delivering a knockout blow. Jackson felt a swell of pride. Then let's make our move. We need to catch them off guard, or we still have the element of surprise. As they charted their course, the crew worked diligently to prepare for the coming confrontation. Each member understood the stakes. They were fighting not just for their survival, but for a future free from the chains of war. Jackson could see the camaraderie blooming among the crew, both human and Drecon. They were becoming a unified force, sharing a vision for peace. Within a few hours, they reached the perimeter of the Drecon stronghold. The dark silhouette of the Dreadfire loomed ahead, surrounded by a swarm of smaller Drecon ships patrolling the area. Jackson's heart raced as he felt the weight of their collective hopes pressing upon him. "Commence the plan," Jackson ordered. "Mira, take the Resolute and engage those smaller ships. We'll provide cover and draw attention away from the main assault." "On it, Commander," Mira responded, her face set in determination. As the Elysium launched forward, Jackson felt the thrill of the impending battle. The crew responded with unwavering resolve, their energy palpable. He could see the fearlessness in their eyes, the embodiment of humanity's spirit, resilient and unyielding. The ships sped towards the Drecon formation, weapons primed. As the first shots rang out, the Elysium danced through the chaos, expertly avoiding incoming fire while returning volleys of energy blasts. The air was charged with tension, the sound of explosions resonating through the ship. "Mira, focus on the left flank," Jackson shouted over the din. "We need to create a breach." The Resolute joined the fray, its cannons firing with ferocity. Jackson watched as the two ships worked in tandem, dodging attacks and striking back with precision. The Drecon ships began to falter, their formations breaking under the onslaught. "Shields are holding at 60%, Kira reported, her brow furrowed in concentration. "But they're weakening." Just then, a loud alarm blared through the bridge. "Commander, incoming missiles from the Dreadfire," Kira yelled. "Brace for impact," Jackson commanded, gripping the edge of the console as the ship shook violently from the blast. He felt the jolt reverberate through his body, a reminder of the ever-looming threat. "Damage report," he demanded, adrenaline surging through his veins. "Minor hull breaches on decks 3 and 4, shields down to 40%, Kira responded, urgency lacing her voice. "Divert power to the aft shields," Jackson ordered. "We can't afford to lose our momentum now." As the crew worked tirelessly, Jackson's eyes remained fixed on the Dreadfire. They were close, so close to bringing the fight to the Drecon command ship. He could almost taste victory, but he knew that the battle was far from over. "Zorak, are you ready?" Jackson asked, turning to the Drecon commander. "Absolutely," Zorak replied, his voice steady. "We'll breach their defenses together." The two ships moved into position, aligning their weapons systems to target the Dreadfire's shield generators. Jackson felt the thrill of anticipation coursing through him. This was their chance to turn the tide of the war. "Now," Jackson shouted, "fire on my mark. 3, 2, 1. Fire." The energy beams erupted from both ships, striking the Dreadfire's shields in a dazzling display of light. For a moment, everything hung in the balance as the shields flickered, struggling to absorb the barrage. Then, with a brilliant explosion, they shattered, leaving the command ship exposed. "Targets locked. We're ready to breach," Kira announced, excitement tinged with urgency. "Deploy boarding parties. We need to take control of that ship," Jackson commanded, adrenaline surging as they initiated the boarding sequence. As the Elysium and Resolute unleashed a final round of fire, the boarding parties were launched towards the Dreadfire. Jackson felt a mix of fear and exhilaration as he prepared to lead his crew into the heart of the enemy's ship. "Let's finish this," Jackson declared, rallying his team as they boarded the Dracon vessel. The moment they crossed the threshold into the Dreadfire, they were met with fierce resistance. Dracon soldiers, their scales shimmering in the dim light, charged forward with weapons drawn. Jackson's heart raced as he ducked and rolled, narrowly avoiding a blast that singed the air above him. "Stay focused. Take them down," he shouted, his voice cutting through the chaos. The crew fought valiantly, united against the Dracon defenders. Jackson moved with purpose, his training kicking in as he engaged in close combat. Each move was calculated, each strike a testament to the strength of humanity. In the heat of battle, Jackson's mind flashed back to the stories he had heard throughout his life, tales of heroism, sacrifice, and the unyielding spirit of humanity. He fought not just for survival, but for a future where such battles would no longer be necessary. "Clear the area. We need to secure the control room," Jackson shouted, rallying his team as they pushed forward. After a fierce struggle, they broke through the last line of defense, entering the command room of the Dreadfire. The room was filled with blinking consoles and the hum of machinery, a stark reminder of the power the Dracons wielded. "Get to the controls. Disable their systems," Jackson commanded, his breath heavy from exertion. Kira and Zorak rushed to the consoles, working in unison to override the Dracon systems. The tension was thick in the air as Jackson kept watch, scanning for any potential threats. "Almost there, just a few more seconds," Kira said, her fingers flying over the controls. The seconds felt like hours as Jackson's heart pounded in his chest. They had come too far to falter now. Just as the tension reached its peak, Kira shouted, "Got it. We've disabled their weapon systems." A cheer erupted among the crew as they realized they had gained the upper hand. "Now let's send a message," Jackson said, a fierce determination lighting his eyes. "We will show the Dracons that we fight for peace, not destruction." With a swift motion, Jackson activated the comm system. "This is Commander Jackson Veris of the United Earth Federation. To the Dracon Alliance, we have taken your command ship. We offer you a chance for peace. Stand down or face the consequences." As the echo of his voice faded, Jackson felt a sense of hope swell within him. Perhaps this was the turning point they had been waiting for, a chance to redefine their future, not just as enemies, but as allies in the quest for peace. The tension in the Dreadfire command room hung thick in the air, the aftermath of battle resonating in the silence that followed Jackson's declaration. He and his crew stood ready, weapons at the ready, prepared to defend their position against any retaliation from the Dracon Alliance. For a moment, there was no response. The only sound was the steady hum of the ship's systems and the distant echoes of the chaos outside. Jackson exchanged glances with Zorak, who stood beside him, his expression a mixture of determination and apprehension. "Do you think they'll listen?" Zorak asked, his voice low. Jackson nodded, though uncertainty gnawed at him. "They must understand that continuing this conflict will lead to their destruction. We have to show them that we are united against a common enemy, war itself." Just then, the comm system crackled to life. "This is General Thrak of the Dracon Alliance. You have breached our flagship and taken control. I demand to know your intentions." The voice was deep and authoritative, filled with the weight of years spent commanding battles. Jackson stepped closer to the console, meeting the unseen general's gaze with steely resolve. "General Thrak, this is Commander Jackson Veris of the United Earth Federation. We have come to put an end to this conflict. The path of destruction serves no one, and we offer you a chance to rethink your position." There was a pause on the other end, the tension palpable. Finally, Thrak responded, "You presume to lecture me on peace. Your kind has ravaged countless worlds in your pursuit of expansion. Why should we trust you?" Jackson felt the weight of those words. The history of humanity was littered with mistakes, conflicts that had left scars on their own world and beyond. We acknowledge our past, he replied earnestly. But we have learned from it. We've seen the devastation that war brings, not just to our enemies but to ourselves. We're fighting to change that, to forge a future where we don't have to live in fear of annihilation. Spare me your platitudes, Thrax snapped. You may have taken our flagship, but the will of the Dracon people is not so easily swayed. We thrive in conflict. Zorak stepped forward, his voice firm. General, listen to reason. Many of us within the Dracon ranks oppose this war. We seek a future where our people can thrive without bloodshed. Join us, and we can build a new path together. After a tense moment, Thrax's voice emerged, quieter yet filled with doubt. You would align yourselves with the enemy. Not as enemies, but as allies, Jackson replied, his heart racing with hope. Together, we can create a new narrative, one where our people grow stronger by working together rather than fighting each other. We have the chance to redefine our legacies. Jackson's words seemed to hang in the air as the silence stretched. He could feel the weight of history in that moment, the legacy of generations caught in cycles of violence. Would they break free, or would they continue to be prisoners of their past? At last, Thrax sighed. Very well, Commander. If I agree to discuss terms, what guarantees do I have that this is not a ploy to destroy our people? Jackson considered the question carefully. We will return your crew unharmed and provide a platform for dialogue. We must acknowledge the loss of life on both sides and commit to a ceasefire. Together, we can work towards a solution. There was another pause, and Jackson sensed a shift in Thrax's demeanor. You have my attention, Commander. But understand this. The Dracon people will not accept weakness. If you wish to pursue peace, you must prove your resolve. Then we shall demonstrate our strength by laying down our arms, Jackson declared, a newfound determination surging within him. We will prove that true strength lies in the courage to seek peace rather than perpetuating conflict. The tension on the bridge transformed into a palpable sense of anticipation. As they awaited Thrax's response, Jackson felt a deep-seated hope blooming within him. The potential for a new era lay before them, one where humanity and Dracons could walk side by side. Very well, Thrax replied, his voice steadier now. We will meet. But know this, the Dracon Alliance will not easily forget the blood that has been spilled. Our discussions will begin as soon as you release our ship and crew. Agreed, Jackson responded, a sense of relief washing over him. Let's work together to ensure the safety of everyone involved. As the call ended, Jackson turned to his crew. We did it. We have a chance to forge a new path. Prepare to release the Dracon crew and communicate our terms for peace. The crew sprang into action, working together to dismantle the defenses they had set up during the confrontation. As Jackson stepped out of the command room, he couldn't help but feel a sense of camaraderie with Zorak, whose earlier fears seemed to be giving way to hope. You've done well, Commander, Zorak said, respect evident in his tone. We've taken the first step towards something remarkable. Jackson smiled, feeling the weight of the moment. Together, we can change the course of our destinies. We're not just fighting for our survival, we're fighting for a better future. As they prepared to receive the Dracon crew, Jackson reflected on the challenges that lay ahead. The road to peace would be fraught with obstacles, but he was determined to see it through. They had been given a rare opportunity to rise above their pasts and embrace a future defined by cooperation rather than conflict. The air crackled with anticipation as the Dracon crew boarded the Elysium. Jackson could feel the tension of the moment, the potential for healing and unity. As they gathered in the common area, Jackson and Zorak stood at the forefront, ready to face the challenges of forging a new alliance. Welcome, Jackson said, his voice calm yet firm. We are here not as enemies, but as allies seeking to reshape our futures. It is time to put aside our differences and work towards a common goal. The Dracon crew, still wary yet intrigued, listened intently as Jackson outlined their intentions. He spoke of shared resources, cultural exchange, and a commitment to protect each other from external threats. The room was thick with uncertainty, but Jackson felt a flicker of hope igniting within him. With each passing moment, he could see barriers beginning to break down. The crew, both human and Dracon, began to communicate, exchanging ideas and stories. As the conversations flowed, a sense of unity emerged, a realization that they were all seeking the same thing, a future free from the shadows of war. In the heart of that room, Jackson knew they were laying the foundation for something extraordinary. They were building bridges where once there had only been walls, rising resiliently together to forge a path toward peace. The atmosphere in the common area of the Elysium buzzed with cautious optimism. Commander Jackson Veris stood at the front, flanked by Zorak and Captain Mira. Around them, crew members from both the United Earth Federation and the Dracon Alliance engaged in discussions that spanned languages and cultures, their initial wariness giving way to a shared desire for understanding. Now that we have established communication, we must address the immediate threats we face, Jackson began, his voice steady and commanding. We cannot ignore the realities of our situation. There are factions within the Dracon Alliance that will oppose its new path, just as there are individuals among humanity who may not support this peace. Zorak nodded, his silver scales shimmering as he spoke. You are correct, Commander. There will be those who resist change, but together we have the strength to confront them. We need to demonstrate that our alliance is built on mutual respect and shared goals. Captain Mira stepped forward, her expression resolute. We should establish a council comprising members from both sides. This will ensure that all voices are heard as we navigate these new waters together. Jackson felt a wave of relief wash over him. They were not just reacting to the situation, they were proactively shaping it. Agreed. Let's create this council and outline our immediate priorities. We need to stabilize our forces and begin discussions about resource sharing, joint training, and defense strategies against external threats. The crew members from both factions nodded, a sense of purpose settling over the room. As discussions continued, Jackson felt a surge of hope. This moment was unlike any he had experienced before. They were standing on the precipice of something monumental, a new era where former enemies could become allies. As the council took shape, Jackson facilitated discussions on their immediate security needs. They identified key territories where Dracon forces had threatened human colonies and vice versa. The focus was on creating a buffer zone to protect vulnerable populations while they worked toward a more sustainable peace. In the following days, the council met regularly, building camaraderie and understanding between the two factions. They shared stories of their past, their struggles, and their dreams for the future. Jackson watched as relationships blossomed and alliances formed in unexpected ways. Dracon warriors and human engineers collaborated on defense strategies, while scientists from both races exchanged knowledge on technology and agriculture. One evening, as the council was wrapping up discussions, Zorak stood to address the group. As we continue to foster this alliance, we must also address the prejudices that have long divided us. The Dracons have always viewed humanity through the lens of their past actions. It is time for us to show them the truth of who we are. Jackson felt the weight of Zorak's words. Yes, and we must do the same. Humanity has made grave mistakes, and it is our duty to prove that we are not defined by our history, but by our actions moving forward. Let us share not just our military strategies, but also our cultures, our traditions, and our values. Inspired by their leaders, the council decided to organize a series of cultural exchange events. They envisioned gatherings where music, art, and stories could flow freely between their peoples. It was an opportunity to dismantle the barriers built by years of conflict. As the first cultural event approached, Jackson felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. He wanted to ensure that it would be a celebration of their newfound unity, a testament to their shared commitment to peace. He turned to Mira, who was busy coordinating logistics. "How do you think our people will react?" Jackson asked, his brow furrowed with concern. Mira paused, glancing at the bustling preparations. I believe they will surprise you. We've already seen how willing they are to engage. If we approach this with openness and honesty, I think we'll create a lasting bond. On the day of the event, the Elysium transformed into a vibrant tapestry of colors and sounds. Humans and dracons mingled, sharing food, music, and stories. Laughter echoed through the corridors, drowning out the memories of the battles fought only days prior. As the sun began to set, casting a warm glow over the gathering, Jackson took a moment to step back and observe. He spotted Zorak, animatedly discussing Dracon cuisine with a group of curious human officers, and Mira, laughing as she demonstrated a traditional earth dance. This is what we fought for, Jackson thought, a sense of pride swelling in his chest. They had forged something beautiful from the ashes of conflict, a vision for a future where differences were celebrated rather than feared. As the night progressed, Jackson found himself at the center of a large circle where both humans and dracons shared stories. An elder dracon recounted tales of ancient battles, his voice deep and resonant. In turn, a human veteran shared a story of camaraderie forged in the heat of war, emphasizing the importance of hope and resilience. With each story told, the bonds between the two factions deepened. Jackson could see that walls were crumbling, replaced by understanding and mutual respect. This was not merely a fleeting alliance, it was the birth of a new chapter in their histories. As the festivities began to wind down, Jackson gathered the council members for a brief meeting. "Tonight was a success beyond our expectations," he began. "We've shown that despite our pasts, we can find common ground and build a future together." Zorak nodded in agreement. "This is only the beginning. We must remain vigilant against those who would see our alliance fail. There are still factions within the Dracon Alliance that will not accept this change." "And among humanity," Jackson added, "we must prepare for opposition, both from our own ranks and theirs. But I believe that with continued dialogue and shared experiences, we can overcome this." As they discussed the path forward, a sense of determination filled the room. They had embarked on a journey fraught with challenges, but they were united in their resolve to navigate it together. In the weeks that followed, the council established committees focused on various aspects of their alliance: security, cultural exchange, technology sharing, and economic cooperation. They worked tirelessly, recognizing that true unity required effort and commitment from both sides. Jackson often found himself reflecting on the remarkable transformation taking place. The once bitter enmity between humans and dracons was being replaced by a deep-seated understanding. They were no longer adversaries, they were partners, fighting not just for their survival, but for a future that transcended the conflicts of the past. One fateful day, as they gathered for another council meeting, a message came through from the outer colonies. It was a report of an impending attack from a rogue faction that sought to undermine the fragile peace they had built. Jackson felt a surge of determination as he turned to his council. "This is our moment to prove our strength. We will not allow these factions to destroy what we have worked so hard to create. We will stand together and show them that humanity and the Dracon Alliance are united." With renewed purpose, the council sprang into action. They formulated a defense plan that combined the strengths of both factions, preparing to confront the external threat with unwavering resolve. As the day of the confrontation arrived, Jackson stood on the bridge of the Elysium, flanked by Zorak and Mira. The energy was electric, a mix of anticipation and fear, but above all, an unshakable confidence. They had faced many battles, but this time they fought not as enemies, but as allies. The fleet assembled, a striking sight, a blend of sleek Dracon ships and sturdy human vessels united in their cause. Together, they launched into the fray, ready to defend their newfound alliance. As they engaged the rogue faction, the power of their combined forces shone through. The coordination was seamless, tactics honed from their collaborative efforts in the months leading up to this moment. Jackson felt a sense of pride wash over him as he watched the crew work together, their spirits high. In the heat of battle, the Dracon and human ships moved as one, their strategies blending harmoniously. The tide turned swiftly in their favor, and soon the remnants of the Rho faction was scattered. In the aftermath, as they surveyed the damage, Jackson turned to Zorak. "We did it. Together, we've shown the galaxy what we're capable of." Zorak's eyes gleamed with determination. "And we've proven that unity is our greatest strength. This is just the beginning of what we can achieve together." With the Rho faction defeated, Jackson felt a sense of hope and renewal. They had stood together against adversity, and in doing so, they had solidified their bond. The alliance was no longer just a fragile promise, it had become a powerful force for change. As the sun set on that day, casting a golden glow over the assembled fleet, Jackson knew that a new dawn had indeed arrived. They had risen from the shadows of conflict, embracing the possibilities of peace, and together, they would continue to forge a future that transcended the battles of their pasts.